Greetings, everyone. This is Virtuous Roots, where we reclaim virtue to bring into our home and yours. And I'm Thomas McCuddy.
And I'm Stacy McCuddy.
And I'm Nick Wiegand. And tonight's conversation is going to be keeping good things as good things. And basically, the idea is we have all of these things in our lives that could be considered good, and we don't want to take them to excess. And when I was sitting here trying to find a verse to kind of center this around, the one kept popping out. Now it's Proverbs 25:16. If you have found honey, eat only enough for you, lest you have your fill of it and vomit it. So I think it's perfect, right? Because all of these things that we know are good can be good in appropriate levels or doses or whatever. And then it's a very slippery slope, but it can be very easily taken too far. So I want to start out by, in the home, what are some of these good things that can be taken to excess?
Well, and it's funny because I didn't even plan or think about this, but when I went back home for Christmas this year, my little brother and I were talking to my mom, and she's living with my little brother now, and we were discussing like how we were raised, and my mom's kind of philosophy was that as we were growing up, she would never deny us, because I think this came up with some of my kids. Like if we wanted cookies, we had cookies. If we wanted to sit and eat box of whatever, she would let us. She's like, how could it be bad? It makes you happy. That was kind of her philosophy. So my little brother and I both were grotesquely overweight as children. So to point this out,
how could it? Very quickly.
Yes, like we had health issues from this that we had to deal with later in life. So my little brother and I, like all of a sudden, it made a lot of sense, like this parenting strategy of my mom, and I understand where she's coming from. There's an element of, I want to make my kids happy. These things, they enjoy them, and her statement, how could it be bad if they enjoy it? Mm-hmm. And the reality is, it was bad for our health. It's bad for our well-being, almost like staying up as late as you want to. I mean, it's kind of fun to stay up.
I mean, you can add to that, it's bad for your character as well, because it doesn't teach temperance. It only taught self-indulgence.
Correct. And so there's this element where it's not that cookies themselves or pizza or whatever it is we were indulging in, none of those things were inherently wrong or bad. Like my little brother and neither one of us has like diabetes or anything such that, a diabetic should not be eating donuts. Like, I mean, that's dangerous for them. But for us, like these were good things, but taken to an excess. And I think it was one of those where we look at it, we're like, but it's just a cookie. What's the deal? We don't think about health, character, and the things that we learn, patience, waiting, or I think there was also an element that we indulged in so much that for us, like you would think like desserts would be a treat. There was no treating. That's just normal. This is business as usual.
I think you're jumping ahead. I was just looking for examples.
Okay.
And I know in your house, I know you spent summers kind of focusing on one of these things. So what are some of the things that you can, that are good, but taken to excess become bad very quickly?
We have a tradition at our house of screen-free summer. So we turn off the TVs and the video games and anything that's a screen for entertainment. Obviously, we can't like live completely without computers, but we cut off everything.
But wouldn't it be cool if we could?
Yes.
Never mind. Yeah.
But we cut off everything that's a screen for entertainment for the entire summer.
So screens, you got anything else that can become excessive?
I mean, anything can be taken to an excess. I mean, even I've had this discussion with my son, like even something as good as reading a book, could be taken to an excess. So, I mean, it just it can apply to anything.
Yeah, so I'm working with my grandkids right now on the idea of what being a good sport means. And so both in sports and games and just basic competition, I'm trying to teach them to win well and lose well. That's what being a good sport is. And for some reason, weirdly, all the kids that I try to teach that to kind of focus on the losing well. And I'm like, no. Like winning well is good also. But then when you watch Little League games and you see parents just completely overblow and get way too involved in sports, they can take this really good thing of competition and they can just blow it completely out of proportion. Right. So I think we got some good examples in the scripture, when it talks about if you find honey, eat only enough for you, lest you have your fill of it and vomit. I just really think it is kind of the perfect thought. I can't imagine eating so much honey I would vomit, though, because I really do like honey. But then again, I really do like screens or sports or cookies.
Well,
and ice cream.
I saw this when I was a teenager and I was working. I was a vendor for one of the sporting arenas in Memphis, and I was selling cotton candy. And I specifically remember at this event, this one family had these kids, and they, like, every time I'd come out, they would get more cotton candy. And it wasn't too long before at the end, like, they were basically leading one of the kids to the bathroom, like they were having like all of these issues, and we're literally probably going to get sick from this. I mean, it's just fluffy sugar, and which again, it's it's one of those things that, I mean, it's just sugar. It's just literally fluffy sugar, but you can eat enough, make yourself sick, and just that it has to be so unpleasant, like, to reach that point. Like, I mean, you imagine how your body's reacting at that point, and I think that it's not just physically, like with the stomach. I think also there's an element, if you take good things, like even in terms of your spirit and your soul, there can be a reaction if you've just wrapped up in that and indulgence. Right. So I mean, almost like, I don't want to say like spiritual vomit, but there is that element that it's become just too much, and your spirit is just done.
But it's interesting with that because, you guys introduced me to the whole homeschool and, crunchy community, the community that really it finds it important for the health and both physical and emotional, spiritual.
Okay, define the crunchy community, because I'm sure we have listeners who are like, what?
Yeah,
like, we've been talking about food and we call them crunchy. Like, we might want to specify what we're talking about.
Can you define crunchy?
Is that me?
Yeah, you have to.
Crunchy, the term came about because, like, a lot of healthy people tend to eat granola, which is like a crunchy, like, thing. And so that literally is where the term came from.
So it didn't, and we had to do with food.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But
anyway,
crunchy. And then there's different levels. You can be silky or you can be scrunchy. There's all kinds of things.
We are not going into all those. That'll be a totally different conversation. No, but okay. So, but you introduced me to that, and so I watch these folks, and one of the things I watch, though, is a complete removal from basically culture and society in some of these things. And so I think a lot of people, when they deem something bad, or that could be bad, you could be excessive or too much, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, then we just won't do it at all.
Right.
And so I think there's got to be this element where we say, okay, this can be something good. Let's use it for the good that it is, without going too far. How do we fight that urge to just like, okay, well, then I'm just not going to do it at all because it's a slippery slope. Everything's a slippery slope. I can't do nothing.
I think for some people, if you recognize within yourself that you have a really strong temptation, that might be the prudent thing to do. That might be the wise thing to do, because if you know you can't regulate that, that might be a good reason for pulling away from that. Like, I did that when I was playing computer games in college, and the game, like the World of Warcraft, came out, that online multiplayer. And that's one of the things we had talked about early in our marriage. Like, I stayed away from it because I had no ability to regulate that. I would have gotten sucked into that. It's one of those things, like, other people were playing, I have a problem with them. It's not like, you're playing that game. It was, if that's, people are going to play the game and do that, that's fine. But those who get sucked in, it becomes their life, and they just start, where some of these guys were, scheduling their work vacations around raids that they were doing online. It just becomes something that, for you have to look at the object, and you have to look at the person. Are you able to regulate it? If you can't, that becomes the element of stepping away. But I think we do tend to maybe go there first, instead of, hey, can we enjoy the good things that God has given us and that we have in this world without misusing them or abusing them?
So I just want to make sure I'm clarifying. One of the good things that God has given us is World of Warcraft.
Leisure time and entertainment.
Okay. Even though Okay, I should. All right.
Leisure time and
leisure time and
entertainment,
entertainment.
and how we use that. Yes.
All right. Can we do the same thing? So can we take books to excess?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, give me an example of taking books to excess.
I think it's the same kind of thing. There's definitely a culture right now of that, like, escape into fantasy, and that, and now, I mean, the whole point of, well, not for everyone, but a major point in reading is, like, how spicy can the book be, and, like, women, I think, especially fall prey to that you're reading the book just for that, element of pleasure and entertainment, and, something that a man might find in pornography, I think women are finding in these types of books. And so that, to me, would be reading in an excessive, inappropriate, way where you've gone beyond, the intention of the book itself, or of the act of reading. Reading should be an intellectual activity and books shape our souls. I mean, and I feel like the books that you read become a part of you. And so when you're reading to excess, or reading beyond what the intended act of reading really is, I think books actually can become dangerous in that way.
I think it's where, in that case, you've got books are supplying for the person what they should be getting in relationships, like in the real world.
Yeah.
And they've gone to that, or where, again, separating reality from fiction, like these, you start hearing people, these are my friends from the book. And it's like, you've pushed too far. You're absorbed too much into the world. It is fun to get in, and you feel for the characters. Like, that's, if you're reading a good story, like, you should empathize and you should experience something. But I think that, again, becomes they've taken it to the excess where it's replacing other things that they should be having.
Yeah.
The same way where, again, if you
before you go past that, because you talked about the spicy or the pornography, and I just want to, like, make sure I don't want to leave, like, the acts that are saved for marriage within a marriage are the good things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
As soon as it is then beyond that, it becomes the excess or the bad thing. So pornography is never good, but the acts within marriage are what God has given us. That same spicy content is never good,
right?
But the acts that, and so it's that, I think those are both also examples of the good that can be good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all revolves around the virtue of temperance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know I interrupted, but I'll let you continue. I just wanted to make sure we didn't go past that.
No, but I think it shows that the complexity of this issue, it isn't just a simple formula. And I think that's what people want.
Yeah.
They're like, what's the proper formula? How should I regulate this? And I think there's a complexity to it, because in terms of food, there is a formula, like how many calories are you getting? You can jot that in a formula. But I think in terms of how do we use things like the free time, or how much should we get involved, or the whole idea of, am I spending too much time or energy or resources doing this other thing? I think there's this element, and this is why temperance, the virtue where we regulate our pleasure, is it's individualistic, because one example I've always used is, if you have, well, even as we're talking about food and the calories we intake, if you have a track star versus an office worker, they're going to need very different diets, and the track runner would be eating what would be absolutely excessive to the office worker.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's why truth always corresponds to the object. So virtues are the same way, that we need to look at the person, and that's why even I might be able to do things like, when it comes to reading, the amount of reading and things I do may be more than what other people would do, which wouldn't be good for them. And so that's why I don't want people like, okay, what's the proper value? How do we calculate? This is why we need prudence. Prudence is that virtue where we do the right things the right way, and for the right reasons, to the right degree. And so I had just mentioned in a recent sermon the fact that in the United States, if you read if at least one book, you've read more than 50% of the people in the United States. Okay. So most of us, when I gave that number, most people in the congregation, they're like, what? You're kidding me. Like, and I heard somebody say that was ridiculous. Like,
That
like
might have been me.
was it you?
Mm-hmm.
It might have been.
I heard it out there.
Most people don't read.
I was like, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, okay, everybody's on board with us. Like, oh, we should be reading. So, we recognize, all right, we should read more than one, but should we read 100 books in a year? Probably not. How do we find that middle ground? How do we take good things and have that virtuous center ground? And
let's not call it middle ground. It's the virtuous center, the virtuous right.
Right.
Because I think that's one of the things is that sometimes we get this idea that, okay, like we have to settle in an area, but if we're going to look at this in like truly virtuous manner, there is a good amount.
Right.
And it's not a middle, it's what is good.
Where's the good place?
The good place.
So not just necessarily middle, it's the good. Because if you go beyond that, you're starting to abuse and misuse what you have. And if you're less, then you're the defect. So I think this is why it really takes for parents, as you're looking at the family, I think this goes back to your initial question, should, we just absolutely pull out? And for those people, families should examine that, is this something we need to eliminate, or is this something we can regulate? Whatever the good is that we're talking about, whether it's food, whether it's reading, whether it's movies. I think that a lot of people don't reflect and think, am I using this well? Is this beneficial? Or am I just following my passions and following my senses? Almost like, I enjoy eating. Okay, I legitimately enjoy eating sushi, and then somebody's like, how many have you had? I was like, probably about 50 rolls. That might be a little bit much. We might have gone beyond. It's a good thing.
I love how you're softening it.
But
that might be a little much.
That's sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
To be clear.
Make sure.
That's the sarcastic. That's too much. But I think also there's an element. When I was younger, I remember like the CC's Pizza, we would go there and I could pound back that and I was fine. I can't even eat half that now. So I think there's some element that to evaluate who you are, where you are, how God has made you, and to recognize he's given us a world of good things, almost like what he tells Peter when he lays down, brings out the sheet, and he's like, take, eat, I've made these things clean. And there is an element, we've been commanded to enjoy what God has given us. Do we see this in the garden? He puts Adam and Eve in a garden. They have to work the garden, which I'm always like, how much work do you possibly have to do in a garden when there were no weeds, no thistles? They obviously didn't have to work the ground because that was part of the curse. And God says, enjoy. There is this element, enjoying the good things that God has made is godly. I don't think we often see it that way.
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a list. You guys can come up with some, but I want you to answer me on it. If it's good, and then what would excess look like?
Cool.
Sports.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. I know I'm asking the most non-sport person I know.
But see, that's the difference. See, so to be clear, I don't enjoy sports, but it's not a bad thing.
Sure.
It's a good thing. I just personally don't enjoy it.
I'm probably not a good person to ask either. We don't do any sports at all in our family. But it's not necessarily that I think it's a bad thing, but I think it's one of those things that very quickly overtakes your family, like he was talking about, without you even like realizing it. Like we're spending like every waking moment either going to practice, going to games, going to a tournament, going to like it just can take over family life so quickly. And it's not like it used to be where you might have like one practice a week and one game a week. Like it's like if you sign up, it's not recreational anymore. It's like you expect 5-year-olds to be professional baseball players.
Yeah.
Like it has become a consuming thing in our culture. And so I think if sports were more recreational like they used to be, then I would maybe sign my kids up for it. But it's not something that I want to be that all-consuming factor in our lives.
Right.
But I think that brings out some of the complexity of this, because you say sports. Well, there's a difference between participating in organized sports versus just your own family recreation, because we have a basketball goal. We have bought the things and even done frisbee golf like in our front yard. We've played frisbee golf with the church. So I mean, again, it's not that we never ever do sports, but we do not do organized sports
Right.
because of what it's become in our culture, where you got to be all in or you're cut from the team. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, we're just not going to go in and we're going to use it this other way. So
I'll give it kind of a differing view. I was in sports my whole life. I was never great at them at all, but I think it really shaped a big part of me. But then my daughter decided she wanted to try some sports out and tried lacrosse out. And she started playing in high school, and it paid for most of her college.
mhm.
Right.
And she was not, it never even got to the point of all in. But I mean, she practiced and she worked at it. I think it really helped her with a, kind of this idea of being, kind of involved in something. But then it was my job to make sure it didn't become all encompassing,
Yeah.
right? It was my
Mhm.
job to make sure that, that wasn't, her grades didn't slip, her social life didn't
Right.
slip. Like, I was working very hard at making sure it stayed balanced. So,
Mm.
all right, what about relationships?
As in
Romantic,
friendships?
of the
Okay.
romantic variety.
Romantic variety. So
Dating or married?
I'm leaving it open.
Okay.
I think you have to have one to get to the other, but I'm leaving it open.
Not
Indeed.
always.
well, yeah, this is true.
In our culture, I hope so.
So
It's not arranged. Like,
again, I think this goes back to, in terms of
you only have 30 seconds.
the person. All right, in terms of the person, if you have somebody who is overly fixated on relationships, you've got to pull them back. You've got to rein that in.
Okay.
Like in the case of our teenager, he's pretty chill about things. He has no real, like that's not really an issue right now. And so for him,
Well, do you give him the freedom to have one if he wanted one?
not yet.
No.
He's not
Which
quite,
is why
he's not quite.
yeah.
But there's been many times people are just waiting for that opportunity.
Have you ever seen a 12-year-old be able to manage a relationship?
No, but we're
Okay.
also like in the case of our son, we're not talking about a 12-year-old.
Well, I know, but I'm saying, like,
Right.
I think we're getting into
Oh.
an age-appropriate aspect of it. I don't think young
Right.
children can do it, but
Like the middle schoolers,
Yeah.
no, like I think there's an element where you have to have like there's an element of emotional maturity, and that's why typically older is going to be better. But even at 15, 16, they may not be ready. They
Sure.
might be too wrapped up, too consumed, and you've got to teach them how to regulate that.
Sure.
What
what about you? Relationships.
Like, are they good?
Can they become excess?
Oh, for sure.
What about marriage? Can marriage, since you asked the question, can marriage become excessive?
Yes, it can. Not that you have too many marriages. Well, I guess that can be a thing.
That is also a problem.
Yeah, also a problem. But I think for me, I had to learn early on in our marriage that my husband was not God. I think a lot of people can try, and not necessarily intentionally,
lift that person
but
up,
yeah,
yeah.
but you lift your spouse up into that position as the view of like it's their job to meet all of your needs.
Okay.
And they're never going to be able to do that.
I agree.
Only God can do that. And so that leads to disappointment in the relationship and then resentment and all kinds of other things if you're depending on your spouse to meet every single one of those needs, or you've elevated them to a place that was never meant for them. I think that
Absolutely.
can be an excess in marriage.
All right, last one, and you guys don't have long, but you mentioned it, buffets.
like the
First off, can they be good?
You don't like them, correct?
No, I hate buffets.
Yeah.
See, I think this is fair. See, he gave us the kind of things he knew, like
Yeah.
we weren't into. But I would say yes, buffets can be good because, again, if you're looking for a lot of food to feed people, it may not be the highest quality.
Wait, is eating a lot of food
I
good?
got it. Well,
A lot of mediocre food?
a lot of mediocre food, variety. When you want the variety,
Okay.
that's why
Fair.
I go.
Variety of pizza toppings?
That is the way. So again, particularly in America, we have a lot more buffets than a lot of. I think other people in the
good
world
night
say
and day.
that buffets are not a big thing around the rest of the world. But for
Can
me,
you
the way I regulate, like if I go into a buffet, the buffet
I'm
is
not
good.
asking how you regulate. I'm just asking, can it be too much?
But the whole
Absolutely.
idea is, what is too much? I have one plate, and that's what I get.
Okay.
And so
Buffets,
that's
can they be good?
I think the point of a buffet is to overeat.
I agree.
mean, you've got this giant spread before you, and you're like, oh, I can go back as many times as I want.
Sure.
I can get a plate of salad, and then I can go get a plate of main courses, and then I can go get a whole plate of dessert.
So I guess if you're going for the
like-
one reason of
Yeah.
variety, maybe, but then outside of that, we just set ourselves up for excess.
Well, and then the cost of buffets forces you to be like, well, I have to get my money's worth,
Oh,
so I got to
sure.
go up there again.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's a trap.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the conversation. I'm glad we could end on the idea of buffets. You can find us on familiesofvirtue.com and our podcast, Virtuous Roots, on all major streaming platforms. Be blessed, and we'll talk to you next time.